Hey everybody, it's Ben and Karen.
How's it
Karen and
going?
Ben and so forth. Mainly and so forth. We're going to look at some Tata Steel games and then do some hand and brain and puzzles and like that and so forth. And we'll probably stop streaming about 9:15, I guess. Or you want to leave at 9:30 or get there at 9:30?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave here at 9:30.
So 9:15 you want to stop
Or
because you got to
9:20.
freshen up.
9:20 is probably fine.
Okay, we'll compromise. We'll stop at 4:20.
Yeah. Um, I'm just gonna look for that date real quick.
Mm-hmm.
How's everybody doing? I'm looking for a date. Sorry to be on my phone.
Only about a third of you have heard of David Crosby, but he died today. He was in a group called Crosby, Stills, Nash or Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and he had songs in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they probably had about 40 songs that were like famous. He also played himself on The Simpsons, which they didn't talk about on the news. I don't know why. And he was actually pretty funny because, and Karen doesn't know this because she doesn't know every second of The Simpsons, but Barney is the drunk on the show on Simpsons.
Okay.
And David Crosby used to be an alcoholic or still is or something.
I knew that.
So Barney was in the program and David Crosby was his sponsor. And then there's an episode so he's in more than one episode, David Crosby. And in one episode, they're at the Grammys because before The Simpsons started, they went back in time, like to the 70s, and there was a barbershop quartet with Homer, Barney, Moe, and somebody else, maybe Apu. And they were at the Grammys, and he met David Crosby at like a snack table, Barney did, or Homer did. And he says, wow, David Crosby, I'm a huge fan. And he says, oh, you like my music? And he said, you're a musician? So anyway, then he's in a court scene where either Barney or Homer, I forgot which one, is naked because they didn't put clothes on because they're drunk. And David Crosby's like, oh, because he's like there for his support, but he's shaking his head. I think he was actually supporting Lionel Hutz, who also suspicious character, R.I.P. So David Crosby died today. He was 81. He was famous for not only drinking, but I think that particular band did some drugs occasionally.
They did, and also it's rumored that he fathered, was it Melissa Etheridge's child? I'm pretty sure he did.
Alec,
sperm
right?
Sperm donor.
And this is the only time in history I know more about the Alec Baldwin situation than Karen, because that's something Karen is right up her alley, and I don't care. However, I did watch the news, and they accidentally talked about it for like 10 minutes. Like the actual news, not the fake news.
I know about it.
Yeah, but I know a lot about it because I watched the actual news. Yeah, so he said he didn't pull the trigger, and the German prosecutor said, "Ish, don't think so."
Yeah, the FBI investigated.
Yeah, they said he did pull the trigger, and he's actually charged with two things. He's charged with involuntary manslaughter, which a maximum sentence of 18 months. Okay. However, he's charged with unsafe firearms, and that's mandatory 5 years. So I wouldn't know this, but I watched the real news, and they were like talking about it, and they were talking to the husband of the woman who was killed, and they were talking about their family and how he's the executive producer now, and they're donating the money to a charity and so forth.
Well, that was a result of the civil lawsuit, was him becoming executive producer. They settled that, and that was part of the outcome of that.
He's for the charges. They asked the husband. He said he agrees with the charges against Alec Baldwin. I don't understand. Alec Baldwin, he's hardly killed anybody.
Well, Song and Dance, what Alec Baldwin is claiming is that he did not pull the trigger and that he just pulled the hammer back. And now the lawyer is saying, well, he could have also been pulling a little bit on the trigger, and when he released the hammer, it would go off. So he's sort of spinning it that way. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but what about, they should write a song about this court case. And you know who should write that song?
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint. The guy said Cult SAA can do that.
Oh, Afro Man.
Afro Man. Cult SAA.
Colt 45. Mm-hmm. Hey, have you guys, speaking of about, that reminds me, have you guys seen Afro Man's latest video and song, in video, where he has all this footage from his home where the cops busted in looking through all of his stuff for drugs, and supposedly Afro Man had kidnapped somebody, and man, that video is so funny. I just wish somebody would tell me they'd seen it.
It turns out he's innocent.
I don't know how to even get you all to go watch it, but it's so funny. Yeah, he did, he caused it, but there were other people involved too. Back to the Alec Baldwin thing. There are 2 or 3 people that have different jobs, the armorer and the production staff. So,
oh man, look, trying to learn. They also ate his lemon pound cake. I don't know if they ate it, but he offered it.
What, in Afro Man's house?
Yeah, his lemon pound cake.
Yeah, I heard that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's managed to get almost a whole album out of it. And then I saw on TMZ about 2 or 3 weeks ago where Afro Man says he's running for president.
Finally.
And, I got to vote for him over Biden or Trump.
By the way, Biden gave a statement today. This isn't a joke. Usually I would make a joke now. He said all this stuff that happened with the documents everywhere. He said, I did nothing wrong and there's nothing there. Moving on. That's what he said.
Who said that?
Biden. He said, I didn't do nothing wrong. Everything's fine. Moving on. Now we'll talk about something else. And he read a statement. He misread one of the words, then he read it again. He almost read it right, but he couldn't read. But he tried.
Well, I mean, there are some key differences between the two. Number one, as soon as they became aware of the documents, they turned them over. Whereas with Trump
still wants the documents. He said, those are mine.
They fought him in court. And
he still says they're his.
Took 8 or 9 months. So there are some key differences. However, it's not, it's no big deal. Let's move along. I mean. Yeah,
Trump, yesterday said, those are my documents and I want them back. I'm like, what? Still he's saying that. Here's the funniest thing Trump did yesterday. This is the funniest thing. Every day he does something funny. He's being deposed. And they showed him a picture of the woman who's accusing him of rape, Jean Carroll or something. Mm-hmm. And they said, do you recognize this picture? He said, oh yeah, I know that really well. That's my ex-wife. Like Marla Maple or whatever, one of his ex-wives. And then his lawyer said, no, that's the woman who's accusing you of rape. And he goes, oh. So yeah, his lawyer's like, no, that's not who that is. So he confused the woman accusing him of rape with his ex-wife.
Crazy.
I don't know.
Well, he's getting old and maybe some dementia.
No, but actually,
Biden's
defense is the Seinfeld defense. He's old, so he's confused. It's from Uncle Leo. I'm old. I'm confused. I didn't know I didn't pay for it. So there you go.
Well, maybe that's what Biden learned from Trump then, trying to learn.
You are a sub-precocious username because you have a Perrier bottle next to your name. That's how you know.
You are a sub-precocious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see it. Maybe you need to refresh. Thank you, Dua. I don't think I've seen you lately. Where have you been?
Yeah, that's true.
Welcome back. Well, let's start some chess.
And I have a Perrier also. So it's not a secret that Magnus lost again. And he sort of lost 2 games in a row, but there was a rest day in the middle. But still, he lost 2 rounds in a row. And the last time he lost 2 rounds in a row was 2015 in Norway chess. He lost rounds 1 and 2. And he was losing in round 4, which he didn't lose. And he lost in the last round to Hammer. What? What does he mean? Losing to Hammer? Jesus Christ. Anyway, so Nigel Davies, I want to say, He's a grandmaster from the UK. He said, Magnus is finished, because he doesn't care anymore. He literally doesn't care or something. So if you ever lose 1 or 2 games of chess, you're finished, according to Nick. That truth hurts. Man, internet's tough. He's been the highest rated player in the world for like 11 years, but he lost 2 games, so he's done. Man, harsh. Okay. Abdus Satorov is 19. He's beaten Magnus before in either slow, rapid, or blitz, or all 3. And now Magnus is fighting for the bottom places. But I'm guessing when the tournament's over, he won't be fighting for the bottom places. Although I could be wrong. What do I know? Okay, so Magnus was white. He played c4, which is...
The English? What? Oh, explosive?
Yeah. The English is also correct. They played a symmetrical English. Okay, and they got their knights out. Okay, good, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Magnus is trying to play something his opponent doesn't know very well. Over the last 10 years, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's more than 10 years, Black has been playing e5 here. And when I was playing chess 30, 40 years ago, Black would play e6, d4, d5, symmetrical, or Black would play g6, take on d4 and play d5 and try to get some kind of Grunfeld reverse Taresh kind of position. But now they're playing e5 because you can analyze this forever. Because there's like d4 and e4 and I can't analyze that. So Magnus played bishop e2, and that's not the most common. And Abdus Satorov played d5, which I assume is his prep. And now white can actually play d4, confusing the audience, but Magnus played the usual cd, knight d5, castles, bishop e7. Black has sort of the Marazzi bind pawn structure, which isn't very binding here, because you can play d4 anyway, which is sort of the point of the structure. Okay, Magnus played bishop b5, which loses a tempo, but is very aggressive. When I say it loses a tempo, white already played bishop e2. Now he's moving his bishop again. You could argue Black lost a tempo by moving his knight twice. Now the e5 pawn is under pressure. Okay, recommended by Freddie Mercury and
David Bowie.
Very good. See, paying attention. Okay, and so he played knight takes c3. Obviously, we'd like to play a move like queen c7, which defends e5 and defends c6, but that would hang the knight on d5. Mm-hmm. So he could play queen d6, which also defends both, but you sort of run into knight e4. And yeah. Okay, in fact, I said queen d6 like of my own volition without cheating, and the engine says queen d6 is this much better than knight c3. So queen d6 is a viable alternative. Okay, he played knight takes c3, bc, and then queen c7. And the engine slightly prefers Magnus's position because Magnus has castled and his opponent hasn't castled. And in such situations, you want to open the center. So Magnus played d4, very thematic. Or as I like to say, thematic. Now, white is threatening the e5 pawn again because the knight is pinned. If we unpin the knight by castling, we just take the knight, then we take the free pawn on e5. So Black has to do something because things are happening. Knight takes e5 is a threat, d5 is a threat, etc. So he takes the pawn, he takes back, takes the pawn, and you can take either way on d4, but knight takes d4 is the engine preference, putting pressure on c6. Now Black has 2 viable moves. He can castle, or he can play bishop to d7. He played bishop d7. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now Magnus played very strange. He played a strange move, then he played a very strange move. And his very strange move is just bad. And after his very strange move, I would say he's losing if 2 engines are playing. So in this position, white is slightly better, and in 3 moves, Magnus is lost. So it's not the Magnus we're used to. He's slightly better with white. He got his opponent out of prep. Then he outplays him and wins. That's the Magnus we're used to. If you want to see that Magnus, look at the round 2 game he won with Black. That's the Magnus we're used to seeing. That's the only game he's won this event, which is one more than I've won. Okay, and in this position, Magnus played a move I would never think of. Never. If you played this move, I would yell at you for being too passive.
Yeah.
I would never consider this move. I would consider the moves the engine is saying. Queen c2, pressuring c6 and pinning the knight. Bishop b2, developing the bishop. I'd probably play bishop b2. Queen c2, I don't know if my queen belongs there. My queen has other squares, right? So I'm not sure my queen belongs here. Bishop b2, I'm pretty sure my bishop belongs there. Because I can't go here, and this is stupid. Mm-hmm. So the engine likes this. It says this is a close second, and white's slightly better. To be perfectly honest, I don't understand Magnus's move. Usually I can say this is why Magnus did it, but he was thinking incorrectly. I have no idea why he made this move. I got nothing. He played knight f3. And I don't know why. I guess black could play knight takes d4, so he stopped it. But that wasn't something to be stopped, I guess. Well, queen c2 stops it. Okay, now black can play very safe, but black made a mistake. And as Wes Berger told me a long time ago, over 10 years ago, he said, the reason I win games, me, is because I make good mistakes. And those are moves the engine doesn't like, but your opponent can't face them. Your opponent can't handle the truth. Your opponent plays badly against your mistake, and then you win. That's exactly what happened here. The best move is to just castle, and black has no issues. And if I was black, I guess I would castle. Okay? Although I might play the move Abdusattorov played, but I doubt it. He played bishop f6 attacking the rook, and that lets Magnus play rook b1, and the rook is better on b1 than a1. So, I mean, rook b1's fine, and white's slightly better. And I guess Abdusattorov's thinking was, if I castle, white can play bishop b2, and I can't thwart the bishop with bishop f6 because I ruined my pawn structure. So I might as well stop bishop b2. Okay, now, in this position, you'll notice that black's king is still in the center, and Magnus wanted to punish his opponent for his indolence, and that's because his first language is Norwegian. He meant insolence. Weren't you an English major? Do you know what indolence means?
Yeah. What? Laziness.
Yeah, what about the chat? Ace Deuce quoted The Simpsons. Excellent. His indolence was inefficacious. That's right. Okay, so one of the problems the best players in the world have is they try to play the most incisive move when they should be playing a boring move. However, when they should be playing an incisive move, then they play it. And weaker players never play an incisive move. They just play whatever's the simplest. So weaker players never win, and good players always win. However, there's the small percentage of the time when you should play the boring move, not the crazy move. And Magnus decided bishop f6 was a mistake and I'm going to punish it. And he didn't play rook b1, confusing Karen. Karen's like, he didn't play rook b1. What do you mean? What did he do? And he prevented black from castling. Kingside anyway. Mm-hmm. Played bishop a3. He sacrificed the exchange. Probably he thought of me. Always sack the exchange. And he stopped him from castling. And he thought after bishop takes, queen takes, I'm threatening queen takes g7. He can't castle. He can never castle, etc. Okay. And the engine says, boo, boo. Okay. Also, in my opinion, you may disagree, Magnus was probably under some self-pressure because he lost the last game, and now he has white, so you can't lose and then draw with white. Magnus didn't come here to get +1. Magnus came here to win the tournament. So if Magnus thinks one line is interesting and another line is equal, he'll probably, in this particular game, play the interesting line, because equal and drawing with white, you can't lose with black and draw with white. That's not what Magnus is about. Magnus is about winning with white and occasionally winning with black. Okay, and the engine doesn't like this move. And unfortunately, I think if he was playing an older player like me, this would work out really well. I would be afraid. I wouldn't know what to do. I'd be scared that my king's in the center. And he's playing Abdus-Satorov, who loves the complications and the interesting play. So he won the exchange.
Why can't black castle queenside at some point?
That's exactly what he did.
Okay, because you said they'll never castle.
Right, I meant kingside.
Okay.
Yeah. And now he castled queenside. And that looks dangerous because the C file's open and the B file's half open. Thanks, D file. Sorry I didn't mention the D file when you subscribed. That's my bad.
It does look scary.
I know that Dave Mason song very well. Terrible. Okay. And the engine says white's not losing, but the engine prefers black. And maybe Magnus didn't think he was better. He just thought this was more interesting, and I'll play my opponent, except for one thing. Okay. The problem with taking on G7, which is like one of my top engine lines if I was playing, is after rook G8, that's very dangerous. Because the knight can come to E5, and bishop can come to H3, and engine doesn't like it. Engine says bad for white. So Magnus played rook C1, lining up his rook with the king and the queen. Always play king B8. And now he could take on G7 safely because there's no knight coming anywhere because it's pinned. So now there's no discovered attacks on the bishop. Mm-hmm. Okay, and he played rook H8, which is fine. My engine's going crazy. Let me delete this line. I can't delete the line? Then I won't. Okay, and in this position, Magnus blundered. Magnus says after queen takes H7, white has 2 pawns for the exchange. It's a double-edged position. White has 2 bishops. All 3 results are possible and will happen. Probably Magnus was worried about bishop G4 attacking his knight. If the knight moves, we play rook H8, and the queen and the rook are attacking H2, and the knight's gone. So Magnus was probably like, I probably shouldn't play here, because I shouldn't open the H file, and then I'm probably losing. And the engine, which is an engine, actually lets black play queen H2 and king F1, which is not something a human would do. Humans don't let you take on H2 and play king F1. It's crazy. Okay, so Magnus played a bad move, queen B2, 2 passive. And, if I was playing Magnus with white or black, I would get crushed because this position is too complicated and he would outcalculate me, he would understand it better, and so forth. But he's playing somebody good who's young, so that's just his game. And to be honest, you guys always say that I hate Magnus and so forth, okay, because I don't bow down to he's the greatest player who ever lived, because I don't think he is. And Magnus's weakness, if he has one, is these kinds of positions. When it's boring and he's better, he's the best. When it's interesting and he's worse, he's not the best. And that's exactly what this is. The engine prefers black, and it's a very complicated double-edged position. That's not Magnus. He doesn't play like that. Okay, so bishop G4 is the best move. Now, if I was black and I played bishop G4, like I would analyze bishop G4 because it looks good, I would be worried about knight D4 because my knight's pinned and attacked like 7 times. I just undefended it. And the funny thing about this is the correct move for black here, and the only good move, is knight takes D4, giving his queen away. And then after rook takes queen, which is a blunder, black has forced checkmate. If black doesn't play the forced checkmate, black's losing. So that means when Abdus-Satorov played bishop G4, he saw this. And Magnus, when he did not play knight D4, he saw this. Okay, and even here, this would be a very difficult puzzle. This is if this was given to us as a puzzle, this would be rated like 2,800. So see if you can find the winning move for black.
Let's see, maybe knight f3.
That's correct.
And then
Right.
pawn
If
takes.
you play here, watch this checkmate. Okay, I want donations because of the checkmate. Okay, so this is checkmate, if you can believe that. And the engine says this is also checkmate. Now, this is a better checkmate because you set up for the next game. Now, black, he can set up the black pieces and got his knight on. That's good. Okay, and so if you take the knight, well, if you play king here, then this is going to be made after bishop f1. Always play bishop f1. So you take the knight. Oh, give me the knight. And then you can mate more than one way. You can play rook here check, or bishop here check, or bishop here check. They're all mate. They're all checkmate. And then if king f1, rook here mate, so the engine plays this, and then mate. And not only is it mate, but black has a free rook. Oh boy. Okay. So when bishop g4 was played, both players realized knight d4 is no good. Now, nobody's going to talk to Magnus about the game because he'll have furious, rage and anger and stuff. So it's possible, I don't know, when Magnus played queen b2, he thought, well, my opponent can't play the obvious bishop g4 because this is good. And that is good if black doesn't play that queen sacrifice mate. And it's possible at your bishop g4, he went, oh, I can't play knight d4. I don't know if that happened. Possible. Okay, so Magnus played knight e1. Always play knight e1. Rook to d1. Takes. And basically, black is up the exchange for a pawn. And black, later in the game, can produce a passed pawn on the queen side with his queen side majority. And even though white is very fortuitous on the king side, right? He's got 4-2. He can't get a passed pawn. Terrible. Also, I have a rook. So now this is just winning for black, but it's very complicated.
Wait a
It's
minute.
hard to win.
So
Yes.
what do you mean by what knowledge do you have that you can just glance at that and say you can't get a passed pawn?
Well, right now he has no passed pawns, and getting a passed pawn is very difficult. You can get a passed pawn, but it won't be this one, it won't be this one, it won't be this one, it'll be this one, and that'll take you like 400 moves.
Okay, I thought you meant...
You could get a passed pawn, but normally when it's like 4-2, you already have a passed pawn. So this pawn
I
structure, which we're making fun of for being isolated, is stopping white from getting a passed pawn in the ending, which is how the game was lost.
Okay.
Okay, so he played bishop f1. Always play bishop f1. Knight e5. Put it in h. Bishop f3. And the engine doesn't like bishop f3 and says that's a mistake. And he lets Magnus back in the game, and Magnus made double question mark move here. Magnus only has one good move here, and he didn't find it. Okay, I don't blame him for not finding it. Nobody would find it. So if Magnus played it, he would be accused of cheating by none other than Hans Niemann. He would say, well, Magnus is cheating. That move is queen b1, defending the back row and, more importantly, attacking h7. And now actually white is okay. But he played queen d4 because you centralize your pieces. Unfortunately, that move makes it easy for black to centralize his pieces. Notice the obvious threat, bishop d6. So he played rook to d8, attacking the queen and stopping the threat. And then he played bishop to d5, and now black totally dominates the center, although white dominates the side and the back row, which isn't as good. And you don't want to lose this pawn, because then I have two connected passed pawns, plus my extra exchange. So he did take. And now in this position, the engine plays bishop takes a2, which is what I would play. And he did not play that. He played bishop to c4, which is not the best move. Winning at chess is hard. He wanted to get rid of that white square bishop. Bishop b2. He traded the bishops. Queen c4 check. King g1. And knight c6 is good. Now, white has two pawns for the exchange, but this pawn is hanging. My queen dominates. My rook's going to the back rank, and black's king is pretty safe, and his pawn is defended. At least he has a passed pawn for the time being. Knight f3. Queen takes a2. Bishop f6 attacking the rook. Rook d1 check. And now we have to be careful because white's starting to get an attack against black's king. So he played a5, which not only queens the pawn, but his king has a7 for safety. Knight d4, queen d5. And in this position, after queen c2, attacking the rook, black played brilliantly. He played queen check, attacking the king and the bishop. You can't move the king because there's no legal moves. So he played f4. And now, if you take the bishop, you lose your rook. And he played very nice rook takes d4, going into a winning queen and pawn endgame. And then you have to take with the bishop because your bishop's hanging. And then you have to take the knight. And then you lose this with check. And then this. And I have 2 passed pawns, and you have 1 passed pawn. And I'm controlling my queening square and your queening square because my queen's better than yours. I'm centralized. And your king can be checked forever, and my king just hides in my 2 pawns because I don't have my pawns on the 3rd rank. These pawns actually shield the king pretty well. And you would think if Magnus was black, he would win with perfect technique as per usual. And if he was white, he's playing a younger player, and the guy would mess up, and Magnus would draw with perpetual or something. Some days. Put it in H, A4, Queen A2. Karen?
Yeah, I thought, let me see. Oh, sorry. I thought there was a fork of the pawns, but I don't know where it was. I'm sure it was
in this position. Queen F5 forks the pawn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Always play Queen F5. Then I play A4.
Okay.
And if you take my pawn, I have Queen B2 check, and then A3, and you got to perpetual me because I'm queening.
Okay.
Yeah, and the engine says there's no perpetual. It's giving black like a really big advantage. Yeah, this pawn's pretty strong. So the number of pawns isn't important. It's how much they're queening. So Magnus decided to queen. Queen A2, attacking this pawn. Again, not super important. F5 is an excellent move, stopping the pawn from moving. H5, Queen H8's the best move. Now in this position, Magnus played a bad move. He should probably play Queen F7, defending his pawn, attacking this pawn. Still, he's in trouble. He played Queen takes A4. And in this position, surprisingly, Queen H4 is the best move, which is a hard move to find, because if you trade queens, white's queening with check on the H8. Mm-hmm. And he played the King G1, which is more obvious. And this position, I guess, is a table-based position. And I'm assuming black's winning, but I'm not sure. Practically, black's winning. Queen goes into the center. And Emil Sutovsky on Twitter was very, what's the word when you don't like a move? It was very what? Critical.
Okay.
Very critical of white's next move. He said unbelievably bad. Now, what's funny about that is it's the engine move. So it's easy to sit in your chair at home and say it's no good. Mm-hmm. He said, with the pawns on the board, white has a chance. Maybe white can queen his pawn. So this helps white because white has, if the queen's going over here helping the pawn queen, maybe I can take this and get counterplay. So he really hated the move G4, trading the pawns. Said now white just loses because the pawn's going to queen and you can never do anything. Now the engine actually likes G4. Okay, so King B6, B4, and this is table base and black's winning. Yeah, black's just pushing his pawn and hiding his king up there. And surprisingly to me, I'm surprised. You may not be surprised. Probably you'll be more surprised than me. That'd be my guess. Is Magnus resigned here? I mean, when I have 4,000 checks, I'm not resigning. Now, unfortunately, the two moves that are check, here and here, this move loses immediately to queen here check. I block your check with a check. And after queen here check, and I move my king, you can't check me because I block with a check. So the truth hurts. I guess that's why he resigned. Yeah. I guess there's just nothing to do here. Yeah. The engine resigns also. The engine's like mate. Ridiculous. So that was an odd game because Magnus lost the way that he usually wins. Well, he should be black this game. Magnus should have black, unusual opening, eventually wins material and has his king open, gets his king safe, keeps the material, and wins a long end game. This is how Magnus would win if he was black, but he was on the losing side of that. Now, I have an opinion, which Karen won't agree with, which is Magnus has a serious case of old. Very serious. You know who doesn't have a serious case of old? His opponent. 19. And it's important to have a lot of energy when you're playing and to have a lot of, what's the word? English isn't my first, English is my only language.
I just think he's burned out.
What's the word when you crave more and more and more? You have somebody.
There are a lot of different words.
No, not chutzpah, not gumption. No, defilement, avarice, drive. Yeah, drive is good. Ambition. Yeah, right. Now, back in the day, okay, in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, if you were 100, 150 points lower than your opponent, as is the case here, and you have the black pieces, as is the case here, and your opponent's been the highest rated player in the world for 11 years and the world champion for 10 years or more, then you're pretty satisfied with the draw. Pretty satisfied, and that's not the way it goes anymore. That don't play. Homie don't play that. Okay, so Praggnanandha's winning with black against Ding. Abdu Sattarov is winning with black against Carlsen. They don't play for a draw with black. Okay, they don't say like, oh no, my opponent's high rated. Ooh, I'm scared. Instead, they study chess 24 hours a day and have 10 chess coaches, and they see all tactics and all openings. So they beat people that are quote unquote old, like Ding and Carlsen. Those guys are seriously old. They're not 17, they're not 19, they're not 21. And they spent their whole life studying chess. And now you got to tell Magnus, hey, Magnus, when you were between 15 and 25 years old, all the openings you studied, all the study you did, forget about that. Now study more, study different stuff. And who wants to do that? The answer is Kasparov retired. Everybody retires. They don't want to do it again. Thanks for the $3.
Yay, party.
See, now Karen started older, so she's studying. But imagine if Karen was like me, okay, and she was like, I studied openings in my teens, my 20s, and my 30s, and I'm like, sorry, Karen, now you're in your 50s, you got to study other openings and do more work. And she's like, I did all that work. Why do I have to do more work? And so for Abdu Sattarov, everything's just normal. But for Magnus, he can't rest on his laurels of all the opening analysis he did 10, 15, 20 years ago. He's got to work harder. And some people don't want to work harder when they've been the world champion for 10 years. Mm-hmm. They want to say like, hey, let's play blitz chess.
He's tired of it. Thank you, Ray.
And it's just, you might think, why doesn't he just do it? Because he's already done it.
I hope so, Bonarici. I need to get better at chess.
But these young players, you know, knowing all openings and seeing all tactics and not being afraid of their opponent, one of the advantages Fischer and Kasparov had over their opponents, and this is a Wes Berger, is their opponents were afraid of them. Okay? Like, if Karen was playing Carlsen, Karen would say, wow, Carlsen's good, I'm scared. Okay? And then if Carlsen offered her a draw, she would take it. Okay? And these guys, these new guys, these guys in their teens and early 20s, they want to win against the world champion. Truth hurts.
I wouldn't want to win. Just because I can't win doesn't mean I don't want to win. Trying to learn says, that's why I waited until I got older to start playing chess.
That's
that
right.
way I can study and learn it once and then die.
Yeah, imagine if you were Kasparov, and you're like, hey, Kasparov, all that stuff that you learned in your teens, 20s, and 30s, that don't matter anymore. Now you got to study 12 hours a day and learn new stuff. Kasparov's like, I don't think so. I think I retire. And then I'll just go on Twitter and say crazy stuff. By the way, when you're older, like me and Kasparov, you can say crazier stuff on Twitter because you have the experience. So even if you weren't crazy in your 20s and 30s, you can become crazy easier because you've seen all the crazy and you can emulate it. You have more experience.
I agree with quite a lot of what he says. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to have to beg to differ. It's not all crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to understand. Berger told me when Fischer sat down, his opponents were scared. They were like, this is Fischer. He's scared. And Abdus Satarov, he literally doesn't care that he's playing Magnus. He's just like, this is my opponent and I'm going to win. Next opponent. And actually, for you guys at home, that's really hard for you to understand. Because and by the way, if you watch the games live, a lot of the YouTube and Twitch comments are, he'll be happy to draw, not this particular game, but just any game, he'll be happy to draw because his opponent's 100 points higher rated because that's the way you think. And that's what prevents you from getting better, is you're happy to draw. If you want to get better, you never draw. You never offer a draw, take a draw, expect a draw. You're not happy if you draw. You're happy if you win. And even when you win, you're not happy. And I'm sure Abdus Satarov will be upset with some of his decisions this game that lessened his advantage.
I heard that Abdus Satarov is now in the top 20 because
Correct.
of that victory. Mm-hmm. Pretty good. I haven't gotten to see any of the
for
games.
example, let's take Trying to Learn as an example.
Yeah.
I played Trying to Learn blindfold yesterday. In the final position, he had a king.
Right.
And he was like, yay, I'm the best.
Well, he drew.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Now, if a grandmaster had a king and that was it, they wouldn't say, yay. They'd say, like, where all my pieces go? God damn, lost all my pieces. And my opponent wasn't even looking. But these are the little victories that lower-rated players enjoy, and higher-rated players, they enjoy being the world champion. They don't enjoy drawing, which is foreign to you guys. You guys are like, he's 19, he has black, drawing Magnus is good. And he doesn't think that way. That's the way you think.
I never try to draw anybody.
I'm talking to the chat.
I'm lower rated. Mm-hmm. I'm lower rated.
Normally, I don't have a king. That's progress. That's
some people like to try to draw. I don't try to draw, and I'm lower rated.
By the way, Progdananda in like rapid chess has beaten Magnus at least twice.
Yeah.
God damn.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, like 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, typically in the World Youth and Cadet, Uzbekistan's killing it. Those kids are good. And Norderbeck was one of them. I remember when he was 12, 13, 14, and so forth.
Man, it's chilly down here.
Mm-hmm.
I should have turned the heat back on upstairs. That's one issue.
That's right, Bonarici. By the way, whenever Magnus loses, these people on the internet get their sheets of paper out and read the reasons why he lost. Or, since he lost 2 in a row, they're like, he's finished. And this is the one thing that I think is lacking in sports commentary on television. If you watch sports commentary, if somebody wins a game, they're the greatest team that ever happened and they're turning it around. Then if they lose, they're like, oh, they're no good. That's not how life works. In sports, no matter what the sport is, you win and lose. And if it's soccer, you draw. And you have to look over a long period of time to see how the team is doing. If the Lakers win 3 games in a row, it's not like, okay, now they're back. Now they're going to, okay, they might lose 6 games in a row next, which doesn't mean they're finished either. That's just what happened. Magnus losing 2 games in a row doesn't mean he's not going to win the tournament. But he's not going to win the tournament, just so you know that. He's not. And Aronian is having a great tournament considering he's 40, right? But it doesn't mean he's going to finish having a great tournament. It could be he collapses. I don't know. Hasn't happened yet. So you can't predict future success on what's currently going on. Magnus lost 2 games in a row. People are writing he should retire. He's no good. He's not motivated. If he wins his next 4 games, they're going to write the opposite. Magnus got mad, and then he showed who he was, and he showed these youngsters, whatever. And we don't know what's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet. But you guys don't know this, but I do. People were afraid of Kasparov. They still are because he's a scary guy, right? He looks really mean. And they were afraid of Fischer, and they used to be afraid of Magnus because the people who were afraid of Magnus were his own age. So when Magnus was 25, other 25-year-olds were afraid of him. But now that Magnus has a serious case of old, the younger players are like, I can beat him. He's old. Because people who are 19 think that people in their 30s are old. Back me up.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. When you're in high school, people in their 30s are old. Yeah. So they're not afraid of Magnus. If Magnus was 22, they'd be afraid of him. But you're scared of possums? Kasparov can barely draw trying to learn. I don't know about that. He would have trouble drawing trying to learn.
As a near 30-year-old, I feel old.
The truth hurts.
This is Aldo does work. Aldo does work.
Okay, next game. Let's look at Aronian, because he's old and he won. He's playing Vincent Keimer, who's young and obviously not afraid of Aronian or anybody. And this game took over 6.5 hours. And typically, if you told me a 40-year-old is going to beat a teenager and they're both 2,700, I would predict it was a long, tedious endgame where he was slowly outplayed, and that's what it was. So, prediction correct. Okay, so they played 1,000 moves of theory in a Rui Lopez. Always a good thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love to turn in 30.
What's funny is, I think this is Magsudlu's game that he lost to Abdus Satorov, except I think Magsudlu played b5 and the pawn was already on c3 and he played bishop c2. So I think Abdus Satorov was a tempo ahead of Aronian's position. Okay, rook e8. Bishop, he played h6. Always play bishop f8. Now, normally when white plays d4 in one move instead of in two, and black plays the Zaitsev-Smyslov variation, which this would be in that instance, the point of playing rook e8, bishop f8 quickly is to not play h6, especially since the bishop's not on b3, so there's no knight g5. And you want to play bishop b7 early so you can put pressure on this pawn. And then he can't play knight f1 because the pawn on e4 is going to be hanging to all these things. That's the point of the Zaitsev. And instead, white gained a tempo by not going here and then here, by going here in one move. And white lost a tempo by playing d3, then d4. So I think this is a direct transposition to the Smyslov variation, which hasn't been popular since like the 60s. So this is unusual for black to play in such a way, because this is considered sort of passive. Okay, bishop b7, and the idea is if you play knight f1, you can't play knight f1. Because now I have the three amigos here, and the engine already says black's better. Thanks, Stonkfish. You take on d4. If you play the obvious cd, then knight b4, and we're threatening this, and this, and this, and this. And the reason we're doing all that is because the knight's not on d2 defending the e-pawn. We can just play bishop b1 here. So that's the whole point of the Zaitsev-Smyslov kind of variation. Now, since the bishop is already on b7, now white can successfully play d5, which is what Aronian did. Knight goes to b8, the knight wants to go to d7, and he wants to play c6. If the bishop was on c8, then our bishop has a nice diagonal here. It's blocked by the pawn. And since black hasn't played c5 yet, he's going to play c6. And we see this in the Breyer variation, which I'm not allowed to play because I'm a vegan. Did they get it?
I didn't get it.
Briar ice cream.
Oh. Oh, Bonarici got it. I didn't get it.
It's boring ice cream.
I was trying to think.
Ice cream's supposed to be
Like
exciting.
what animal it sounded like or what meat.
Who invented the Jobava London? The City of London. Briars has a vegan option. All right. Okay. So he played B3 ostensibly to play C4 and tighten up the D5 square after C6. And also you get connect 4 in case you're doing that. So this is a slow, methodical maneuvering game, which is advantage Aronian because he's older than his opponent. Knight BD7. And also, Aronian plays the Ruy Lopez with black. So he has experience with both sides of these positions. C4, C6. And, you know, Karpov made a living in the 70s and early 80s winning these kinds of positions for white. Knight F1, remaneuvering the knight. Black played A5, engine approved. Bishop E3, A4, engine approved. H3. Now this is actually funny. The engine wants to move the rook away from the A file, which is weird because that's going to open up soon. So H3 makes more sense to me, stopping knight G4. AB, rook takes, queen takes. By the way, this is the first time I've seen this game. I'm like you, I haven't seen that. And the engine says black has equalized. Queen C7. Black looks a little passive to me. Queen A5. Knight G3. B4, closing up the queen's side. Black dominates the A file, the only open file. Knight to E1. He wants to play knight D3. And then perhaps at a later later point, F4. Attacking the center, pawn break, etc. Knight C5, never play F3, so he played rook D1. The engine played F3, never play F3. Knight F5. And now this is a good question for the audience. And since Karen's here, she's part of the audience. And she's streaming. Would you take with the rook, the pawn on E4, or the pawn on C4? And the engine says, one loses, one's equal, and white's better after one. So that's a pretty good question. This is the kind of position that would be in the Perelstein book. Which way would you,
Right.
with Nate Solon.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I would want to take with one of the pawns.
Right, taking with the rook just loses the rook. That was like a joke.
Right.
That was like
okay.
a joke.
I mean, I don't like opening up the C file because then the bishops can get attacked by the rook.
Mm-hmm.
But then it seems hard to bust through if you don't take with C take. I think C takes.
Right, the engine says C takes is equal. And then after E takes, which was played, white's better because we open up the bishop.
Oh, okay, yeah. I see that now.
Mm-hmm. And if I was playing white, I would probably take with the E pawn just to open up my bishop. But I wouldn't know it was right. I'm sure Aronian knew it was right. I would be like, I guess I'll put up my bishop. I don't know. I hope it's better than this. I don't know. Okay, so he took with the E pawn. Bishop C8. He didn't like his bishop, hammering against this. So he thought his bishop was better here. Bishop to D2, putting pressure here. Knight F6. Knight goes back to G3. And white's just better because white has more space. And earlier in the game, the last 5 moves, the engine wanted black to trade queens and thought black was equal. But now it seems like white's getting the advantage. We have to take the knight because our pawn is attacked. And that was a nice knight. Mm-hmm. That was a beautiful knight. And the engine doesn't like that move at all. It wants to play the fairly obvious, in my opinion, knight D7 to play knight C5. Knight's good on C5. But he played here, which I don't like. Bishop f5. Engine doesn't like that move either. He wants to trade the white square bishop, so his knight has all these good squares, and then black's left with this sorry bishop behind his pawns. Although often the bishop can go to b6 and be pretty good. Bishop e8. So the engine doesn't like the moves the players are playing. It doesn't like here. It doesn't like bishop e8. It likes bishop b1 a lot. So now white's going to play queen c2 and knight h5 and give a checkmate. I would say checkmate, but the Soviet players who are better than me say a checkmate. So they're stronger than me, so what do I know? Bishop d7. f4. Finally, he opens it up. And the engine says, boo, you shouldn't open it up. But it puts pressure on black to play like really accurately here. And black immediately made a mistake. Queen a3 is the engine move. And this is actually very funny. Look at this engine line that no human would think of. Queen a3. So we play queen c2 and keep our attack. And now a move that would be very hard to find for a human. And you're a human, so I can't let you find it. Bishop a4. And then you can't defend your pawns. You have to take, and you take here. And the engine says either white's better or it's equal. It can't decide. I think it prefers white. I would definitely take white here, although my king is a little funny. Yeah, it's saying it's about equal, but I would take white. 2 bishops and probably win a pawn somehow. Okay, so he played rook e8. The engine says that's terrible. Why is the rook on e8? He thought the file would open later, so I might as well have my rook on e8. But he's giving up his play on the a file. Now his queen is misplaced. Rook f1. The rook's better on f1 than d1, obviously. Bishop d8, which I suggested earlier to get the bishop to a good square. fe. Queen check. And it's funny, whenever I have this decision in my games when I was a good player, thanks GM Gascon for rating with 1022 personnes.
Yay, thank you for
I
the
just
raid.
assume you must be French because look at your name. Probably you're like from South America. Show me.
Yay, thank you.
Anyway, merci pour le, raid, etc. Et maintenant, the stream français seulement. Je parle français et désolé if you don't speak French. Sorry. Okay, so in this position, what? Okay, so in this position, when I have black, I'm like embarrassed because I don't know which way is right. And if I think for 10 minutes, which I might, then the guy knows me. He doesn't know which way is right. And to them, it might be obvious. And they're like, man, this guy sucks. If you move too quickly, you might make the wrong one. Now, what's funny about this is white is better after either recapture. White's just better here. White's outplayed black. And he played the one that's much worse. So even when you're 2,700, you still don't know which way to recapture. You're guessing. You use your judgment from previous, experience. Which way would you take, with the pawn or the rook? He chose the wrong one. So if you choose the wrong one, then you play like a 2,700. Choose the right one, then you're right and better than 2,700. So you win either way. It's Pat. Gascon means boy. That's a good reference to Pulp Fiction. It's a misquote, but still good.
I mean, I don't see any reason to take with the rook.
So you take with the pawn.
Yeah.
Correct. Pawn takes is correct. And the reason pawn takes is correct is you want to use that pawn to get counterplay. But probably black said, I don't want white to have 2 connected passed pawns. I don't want my rook blocked, so he took with the rook. Young players like to play actively. Like, ooh, look at my rook. It's active. And now white has no passed pawns. So that's probably what he was thinking. Okay, unfortunately, this gives away the f4 square, so I have bishop f4 kicking your rook. And then his rook went back to where it once belonged. Queen d2. And black just doesn't have a lot of play here. Black's very passive. White's totally dominating on the king's side and in the center. White's pawn majority is a good pawn majority. Black's 3-2 is irrelevant. In fact, it's good that white doesn't have an f-pawn because his rook is active. So he played h5, which is not something probably most people would consider. However, h5 is the engine move. He wants to play h4, kicking the knight, and he wants to stop this sacrifice. Bishop takes, queen takes, and the rook's here, and the bishop's here, and the knight's here. h5, very good.
Hey, Corbla, how's it going?
Now, the reason h5 is bad, if it's bad, is because it gives away the g5 square. So he played bishop g5, immediately punishing that. And sometimes I'm going to sacrifice on f6 and open up your king and totally checkmate you. It'll be totally awesome. Played h4. And after he took the pawn, the bishop isn't controlling e3 anymore. So he plays queen e3. Engine approved. Engine says h4 is right, queen e3 is right, and black has counterplay now. Takes. This pawn needs to be protected on b3. Rook f3, engine approved. Takes. And now we have a pawn up endgame, which white is winning, which will take 1,000 moves. And when they stopped the game here and they were interviewing Aronian, and he said, I'm a pawn up, I have to win in 1,000 moves. That's just my game. What movie?
I don't know.
Pulp Fiction. Play for Blood, that's just my game. I was only fooling, I wasn't. So this is a winning position for white, but it'll take a long time. And this is a pet peeve I had when I was a chess coach. A lot of lower rated players would agree to a draw here with white. And when I'm like, why'd you agree to a draw when you're pawn up? They would always say the same thing. Always. I didn't know how to win. And the way to learn how to win is to agree to a draw. And then I quit teaching. And then Aronian agreed to a draw, saying he didn't know how to win. No, that's not what happened. Also, nobody knows how to win. You're up a pawn, so you play until you win. Sometimes you're pawn queens. Okay, so black played bishop e7, which unpins his knight, sort of. Okay, now, in this position, if it was black to move, I said if. Black could play knight takes d5. Tricky. Recommended by Run DMC. Okay, and with the bishop on d8, you can't do that. Right. So now knight e4 you're not worried about because you could just take this. Okay, so he played bishop f5. He wants him to take, and then knight takes, attacks the bishop. And I'm threatening to take this, and your knight's pinned. So bishop f5, good. Bishop e8, always retreat. Okay, and now you can play knight e4. I don't know if he did. No. Okay, you can play knight e4, and if you play this, which was the trick that worked last time, now when I take on d6, I gain a tempo, attacking the bishop, and I have a passed c pawn. So this should be winning for white. So he didn't play knight e4. He took the bishop. He took the knight. You have to take with the bishop. And then he played f4, so the bishop can't go anywhere. And now he's going to play knight e4 and have the great knight. g6, knight e4. Obviously, if you take, I take, and I win the king up pawn endgame because I have a passed pawn here, and I create another passed pawn here. Which I don't have to do that, but right. And then we have this great knight. We have the 3-2 majority. These bishops are passive. In fact, that bishop's trapped on e8. Terrible. So he plays f5, kicking out the knight, giving his bishop a square. Knight f2, it's going to d3. If I could play knight d3 now, I said if, then you can't defend your b pawn. So he played here. That way he can defend his b pawn. Boo, bishop a5. Ugh. Okay, you ever seen such two sad bishops?
Oh, yeah.
I showed this to Trump, and he said those are sad.
Oh, somebody was asking who this is between. I didn't even notice that you don't have the...
Oh, I put it on the wrong one.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
That was on analysis multiple games. It should have been on Chess.com events. I clicked the wrong thing.
Darn.
Aronian's white and Keimer's black, or Keimer. Depends on who you ask.
All right, you should be able to see it now. Sorry about that, guys. Thanks for asking who the game
Aronian. Okay. King g3, moving the king up. Move it on up. He's just having fun moving his pieces around, not doing anything. He's never had so much fun. Black has some counterplay with g5, so he stops it. making him suffer, torturing him. And finally, he breaks on through to the other side. So he plays h5. Obviously, if I play h6, I'm probably going to win. And if you take the pawn, I'm going to take the pawn on f5, and my king can walk in, and I have a passed f pawn. So h5 is very strong. He takes, gets his knight to a good square. Now his king can walk in. Christopher walk in. And this is just black not resigning. Bishop g6 is good. If you take and I take back, your king can't approach, and my king just takes this. Obviously, if you take the quote-unquote free pawn, you lose. Mm-hmm. So he plays king h4, he wants to take with the king. Now that's a dominating knight, and that is a terrible bishop. And then he resigned. And the engine says +9 for white. White's going to play bishop here, and then walk his king in, and so forth. So if you told me a 40-year-old beat a teenager, and they're both 2,700, I would be like, yeah, that's equal position. He outplayed him strategically. Keimer wasn't very good being passive, and eventually Aronian broke through. And that game was like 6 hours and 40 minutes. Now, nowadays, you can't beat people like that. Like Keimer and Progdananda play just as good as anybody when it's 6 hours old. But Aronian's having a good tournament, and unlike 2022 when he did not. Now, I can be wrong, and I will be corrected by the chat. And people on YouTube will be like, you idiot. If I understand things correctly, which I don't say I do, I think Aronian just had a baby.
Oh, really?
Like in the last 2 months.
You mentioned that before, and I forgot.
Yeah, I think Aronian just became a dad.
Oh, good.
So he did it for his son. Or daughter, I don't know. Yes, he did.
He did? That's
He was
awesome.
pregnant? He was. Yeah, he thought so long on move 20 it was a pregnant pause.
Zhang moves.
Just asking if there's any news on Zhang.
There's no news that I know about moves. So, yeah, I don't really know. I think it kind of died down. He has a daughter, Sam Martin says.
Yeah, typically on the internet, when he was talking or writing, it was always about one of his dogs. He was like, my dog this, and he referred to his dog by the dog's name. So I wasn't even clear it was his dog. But he was like, this happened and my dog, but now it'd be about his daughter.
Mm-hmm. You're starting to get worried, Moves? Yeah, I hope he's okay. Oh, he's taking a break from streaming and getting help, is what they said, trying to learn. Yeah, if he's stressed out, he should do that.
If he wants help, he could just play a match with me. That's all the help he needs. He'll be like, man, 10-0, I feel better.
So that's an update for you, Moves. Aw, well, hopefully everything works out.
Is Robert Paul Wolf related to Patrick Wolf? It could be Patrick Wolf's dad. Patrick Wolf's mom and dad, who are not married, they haven't been married in 40 years, they're both college professors. One was like at Harvard, and one was at Yale or something. I think he went to Yale, but his dad taught at Harvard.
Oh, you knew that part already, Moves? All right, well, that's not a real update.
Right. Everything the Grobfather wrote is incorrect, as per usual. Age does matter at chess. When Karpov was in his 20s and 30s, he won every tournament. And Smyslov the same. You can't use outliers and one tournament outliers and saying age doesn't matter. That's like saying that Republicans are right. Anybody can just become rich and work hard and everything's great. Then they point out to one person who did that, and then that person, it turned out, was lying. They don't point out to the thousands of people who inherited money from their family. That's how you become rich in the U.S. Old money. That's how you do it.
Well, yeah. Obviously, age is one factor. I think you point to it more heavily maybe than some other people. But obviously it matters.
Man, Kramnik retired really early. I think he was like 39, 38. He's like, I had enough of this.
Had enough.
Old. Yeah.
Yeah.
The exception proves the rule, except for one thing. Yeah, basically old people are bad at everything. I think that's Simpsons. I think. Yeah, Ivanchuk is number like 200 in the world and he used to be number 3. So, I guess. Terrible. Ivanchuk doesn't get invited to Super GM tournaments anymore because he's not good enough. He plays in the second tier. Also, a serious case of old was Elvest. Elvest was good in his 20s, top 5 in the world. God damn, now he's no good.
Old people are good at getting elected president, said Bonarici. That's true. Well, I'm going to take a little bit of exception to this, and we'll say that I've seen plenty of poker players that start later that are pretty good. Yeah. And actually, Victoria Lifshitz, unfortunate name, chess player, she's doing pretty good. And I don't know how old she is, but she looks like she's in her 40s. I do have a channel, Fried Bastards, but I haven't streamed on it in a while because I stream here all the time. So I think we're going to rename the channel to include me. So in the next few days, actually.
Showing exceptions to a rule doesn't mean the rule's wrong. It improves the rule. For example, if you took the 40 best poker players in the world when they were 40, and let's say Doyle was one of them, then you did it when they were 80 and somehow they're all alive. Okay, obviously not, but okay. Then you're like, well, Doyle's good, so age doesn't matter. Terrible. That's why you guys aren't college professors. You're people on the internet stealing your connection from a relative or the next door neighbor. Go GM Gascon. Not sure who that is, but he sounds French.
Yeah, welcome, Pre-Babe, to the stream.
Who is the chess master who's always very good at poker? That's everybody.
The chess master you're talking about Dan Smith?
Dan Smith isn't a master, but he's like 2,100.
Oh, okay.
But he's probably just talking about Dan Smith.
He could mean Tommy.
He could mean like 50 people.
GM Tommy Nyback? Was the one he just...
Oh, Grishuk.
Oh, okay.
Grishuk's not great at poker. He's okay. Dan Smith is great at poker. Yeah, Andy Murray was down 2-0 against Doofus, and then he won. Now, this isn't a joke, and when I tell you, you won't believe me. And then people in the chat will be like, Ben's right. Okay. When they were playing the match yesterday, it could have been today because it's Australia, so I don't know what date it is. Andy Murray won in 5 sets. Guess what time the match ended where they were playing, their time.
Nah, I don't know.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
4:03 a.m.
Okay.
How do you have a tennis match end at 4:03 a.m. where they're playing? They won't stop the match and play the next day? There's people in the audience.
I guess not.
What? Yeah, that match went about 6 hours. Yeah, usually they would stop at midnight or 1 a.m. and just play the next day. And they weren't allowed a toilet break. I don't know about that. I think you could always take a toilet break, like between sets. Maybe 35 is so young. You can eat cupcakes whenever you like and not get a headache.
Maybe a new theme song based on Shakira.
What? You know who has a serious case of old right now? Is Nadal. God damn.
Yeah.
Every part of Nadal's body is broken. When Nadal got injured, Djokovic went, good. By the way, they booed Djokovic, and he complained to they were heckling him in the audience. Like, you suck. And he complained to the chair umpire because of what happened last year. So people don't forgive Djokovic for being a dick. I'm on the fence with Djokovic because I don't like his behavior, but I do like that he's a vegan. So I'm on the fence.
What, because he wouldn't get vaccinated?
Yeah. So in Australia, people are like, yay, Djokovic or boo Djokovic. It's like half and half.
They're crazy, but they're crazy about the COVID down there in Australia.
Crazy like Fox News.
I mean, they're crazy over there. I mean, I'd just rather die than live somewhere like there, China. So I'm not saying I'm on Djokovic's side. I'm not.
But what if you really like Chinese food, which you don't? Light
But-
Night subscribed.
That's why they're booing.
Karen doesn't like Chinese food, and she also doesn't like the sun. So that's why she doesn't like Australia or China.
No, I want to go to
Oh,
Australia
snap.
because it's so beautiful there. I'm just saying, they're a bit over the top with their COVID restrictions.
COVID.
Oh, they had weird camps. Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Finally, Chinese people had enough.
Then they all got COVID. Oh,
Well, I mean, they had to get it at some point. They gave up over there. Finally. Because Chinese were people who were like, no, we are not staying home anymore.
I was in China before you guys were born, 2011. Most of you were born by then.
They were literal hotels, oh my God. Wow, so they weren't like, camps, like, war camps. Not that bad, huh?
That's a Karen question, how to sponsor. Karen at atlchessclub.com.
Yeah. I'll type it. You can email me about it. That's the only. I need a different email address because we don't have a chess club anymore.
What was I doing in China? Chess stuff.
But that's what it is for now.
I was in Shanghai and Ningbo. Ningbo is a city you've never heard of unless you're Chinese. If you're Chinese, it's 50-50 you've heard of it. So probably one person in the chat heard of it because there's 379 people in the chat. They've had tournaments in Ningbo. That's the reason you would have heard of it.
More like trailer parks.
Been to Ningbo, good food?
Yeah, thank you for
Sounds like you haven't been to Ningbo.
asking about it.
Now, this isn't a joke. I'm serious. When I was in China, me and Tony Rich went to a department store. I don't remember if it was Shanghai or Ningbo. I don't remember. And we were walking in, and there's a poster, like a model, like, the clothes. They always had these funny poses. I was making fun of them. And it was Magnus.
Oh.
Yeah. Because he was like doing some clothes then with Liv Tyler.
Okay.
G-Star Raw. Yeah, that was Magnus's brand.
They were not hotels, says Hickey. They were camps. Google it. People tried to escape and they were arrested. That's absurd. That is absurd if that's true, Hickey. I believe you, Hickey.
I don't believe anything. Liv Tyler is correct.
No, I mean, it's absurd.
Magnus and Liv Tyler were like that, son.
Okay, now Whitty Seal lives in Australia, or is from Australia. He says it's hotels. We've got a conflict here. Hey, abundantly unhappy camper. All right, yeah, you guys sort it out, but get back to me. I'm curious. I want to know what the truth is.
He would probably be a 2,700 player? Probably. Probably ridiculous. Okay, let's do like something else now. Hand and brain or puzzles? I think puzzles because we only got like 20 minutes left.
Yeah, that makes more sense for just 20 minutes. Otherwise, I'd be all over the hand and brain now that I've gotten less intimidated by the situation. Hey, Pat, how's it going?
It's Pat.
Well, I think it's going to be a short stream, I guess, because it says 1:22.
Mm-hmm.
What time did we start?
An hour and 22 minutes ago.
But I thought it was like 7:30.
Yeah.
I guess it was slightly later than that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing well, Pat. Oh, next week, well, I'll say it at the end of the stream. Just a couple of little announcements.
Okay, so we'll go back. Ready?
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know you'd done it.
Bam.
Okay, white to move.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I was going to.
Okily dokily. This looks slightly familiar. I'm now craving Chinese food, is what somebody said. Yeah, I got to my lowest weight today this year, 246.2, as is in the stream title. Go, Ben. Yeah, I've lost 11 and a half pounds this year in 19 days. Frankly, terrible. Trying to learn's losing weight too. He's lost almost 10 pounds.
Oh, good. I had to bump my steps up because I'm not losing the weight that I want to lose. So now I'm trying to do 15,000 steps a day. See if that'll take care of it. So I have to walk an hour and 40 minutes on the treadmill.
Well, my New Year's resolutions are 1,200 calories a day in the gym every day. So that should do it.
Let's see if I go there.
I gotta see if my answer is right because Sam Martin posted an answer.
But then he goes there. Trades.
Yep, he got my answer, Sam Martin.
So I don't know. I think I'm just going to have to take a guess. But I thought it was rook on F3 to E3. All right, well, go ahead.
Then I think queen here check. Yeah, probably. We could just take. Yeah, it's king G3 to just avoid all the checks.
Right, I thought.
But then if he plays queen G4, that's the interesting move.
That's what I thought they would play.
Yeah, then you take it.
Okay.
Then you take this. Then you have this skewer at the end. 2701.
Darn. It looks so easy now that I see the solution. You got it, Bonarici? Yeah, it doesn't really seem that hard. I don't know why I couldn't do it.
Ready?
Yeah. Yeah, tonight when I go to karaoke, I can have one beer, but I can't have any more food today. I already ate, all I should eat.
I have the first move that I give up.
What do you mean you give up?
Why didn't he just take the rook at the start? He was in check. White was in check in the last problem, so you had to get out of check.
All right, so I can't go there.
Right, fried bastard. Then queen G7 check and F7 check is winning. Sammy, that game was analyzed earlier on the stream. Got to watch the whole stream. And also, you're supposed to sub. Also, we haven't had a train in a while, so thanks for reminding me.
Oh, okay. So I think it's king G2.
Uh-huh.
Because if you take the knight with your bishop, then they can go d4.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets a little messy.
Then they attack your queen.
Right. Okay, now what?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not asking you to tell me.
I know. Have a good night, Sam Martin 01.
I don't know. I would just take the rook with the bishop.
Mm-hmm.
And then...
Yeah, queen d1 hangs the queen for you, party. There's a knight on f2.
And then I would just go queen e2.
It's illegal.
Oh, yeah. Pin.
But it is good if it was legal.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't see that. Let's see what happens if I block. Let's see, I guess knight d5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like to play queen takes, pawn takes, bishop takes. Mm-hmm. Then I have 2 rooks and a bishop for a queen. However, if I play queen takes, he plays the Zwischen Zug, knight takes e3 check. Then he takes, then it's 2 rooks for a queen. That's not enough. What? I thought it was knight d5. Well, then I don't know. Oh, I guess you take this, then you take this, and then you take this. You have to take them in the right order. Yeah, you take this, they take your queen, then you take this, then they take your bishop, then you take their bishop. You have to take things in the... What? What's wrong with that? It's probably the move I said it wasn't, but it's not.
All right, well...
Oh, I can just take this. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I can just take... I forgot I could just take both pieces. That's 28-11.
Man, that was tough.
I don't see why my moves don't win. Okay, let's see why this doesn't win. DE3 is good. Queen D8 is good. All right. And why doesn't...
Wait, what was wrong with that?
This is fine for black. Let's see, I take... Man, now you're on this. Damn.
Oh, okay.
And what was the other move I thought won? Oh, yeah, I thought this one. Oh, I was right about bishop takes f3 losing, but you take this first. That I didn't see.
What do you mean? Bishop?
If you take this, I was explaining how this was winning, and I was right.
Okay.
But I didn't see you just take this, and it's still pinned. And if you play knight d5, it's just transposes. It's the same thing.
Okay.
That was too hard. 2811.
Yeah, that one was too hard for me.
I get them wrong 100 times in a row.
That's happened before Goblin is here, but it's not the usual.
I learned from Magnus. I get it wrong twice in a row. What's this? It's pandemonium.
Keep yawning. I gotta make it through karaoke. I'm not gonna stay long.
I solved it. I'm the best. Look at me. Hi, Karai Hidalchi 77. Go 77.
I think that's it. Rook A8. And Knight C3. Rook A4. Okay, I didn't look at this. Let's see.
It was cold December 21st to 26th. It was 70 degrees today.
Rook B4.
Me. Yep.
Yeah.
2160.
That was easy.
I thought it was harder than 2160, but all right. Next, yours. So next.
That's pretty easy. Black to move.
I think I have it. Well, the chat's not using an engine. Which is good. Congrats.
Let's see.
Oh, my answer is wrong.
Yeah.
Yes. Darn, I refuted my answer. I hate when that happens. All right, I better look again then. Man, that means the chat was right. Terrible. I'd rather be wrong 1,000 times than the chat right once. This one's a lot harder than I thought, but okay. It's Arjun from Tata Steel, the same Arjun from your lectures back in St. Louis. Oh, is the Arjun from Tata Steel. Yeah, Arjun's a very uncommon name. He's the only person in the world named Arjun. So yeah. There's only 500 million people named Arjun. No, the Arjun from St. Louis lectures is about 2,000 rated now. The one in Tata Steel is like 2,800 FIDE.
Well, let me look at something else because everything I look at doesn't even work.
Yeah. Hey, Kingpin.
I mean, it's just hard. I don't get it. Go ahead.
So I thought it was Queen F5, but that loses to Bishop F7, King F7, Rook E7 check, King takes, Bishop G5 mate. So then I was like, oh. Then I looked at G5, and then after D3, if he plays Rook E7, we play D2, and if he takes on D2, we have Queen takes Bishop on C4, which I think is the only move. I think that wins. So I think it's D3, and then I think he's going to play Rook E7. I have to play D2, and he's going to take, and I have to take this. I think that's what's going to happen. And the idea is, after here, I'm going to take your rook, and I have queen check. If you take my queen, I take this, threatening the queen and your bishop. And bishop F7, king F7, queen at C7, king takes seems fine for black to me. There's white's out of checks.
I don't understand how any of that works because it seems like the knight can take the queen on C4. So.
Right, then I could take your queen. After here, takes, knight takes, rook takes, knight takes. I'm up a piece.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Because I started up a rook.
I couldn't visualize the rook.
I think queen moves just lose. And I didn't like G5. I looked at it for a while. So that means it's D3. $21.40? That should be $31.40.
I thought that was so hard.
It is.
Did you guys get it?
It is because most people said D3, then they couldn't analyze anymore. They just said D3, and they said, I don't know. Right, this is the line that I thought was interesting. Rook E7. D2 is the only winning move. Queen D2. That's the best move. And then this is the only winning move. Yeah, this is the line I give. Yeah, and this is winning for black because black's going to be a piece up. Yeah, I thought this was the answer. And then in this position, I thought it was here, but this is just mate. And if you take this as mate, which is pretty cool, and if you play here, then f7 check and mate.
Yeah.
So the chat mainly said d3, then they didn't have any analysis to back it up, as per usual.
Right. Hey, it's 9:20, and I
But good enough.
didn't realize it was quite so late. So I have to actually head out soon. Are you going to end the stream?
Sure,
Or
why
keep
not?
going? But it's up to you. I'm just. Regardless, I'm exiting.
But who do I raid? Look at all those people I can raid.
Let's
You're following like 20 people who are streaming. I can't even believe it.
Let me look. Well, man, it even says show more.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are these people that I don't follow.
People.
Well,
I think I'll raid Simply.
that's fine. I was going to say chess bra, but Simply's fine.
Blah.
I love chess bras.
Are they doing chess? Oh, they are. All right, I'll
Yeah.
raid them
Oh, okay.
because they raid me.
I love them.
I didn't even notice them.